So let us proceed with the first presentation. We will invite Mr. Pierre to talk about EU battery legislation in a circular economy perspective.
이 시간이 20분이니까
Please keep to 20 minutes for each speaker. So thank you.
박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
To the podium.
Good. Can you hear me? Yes? Not yet the presentation. It's not my presentation. If I speak on this one, I'm not sure you will understand me. Good. Thank you. So indeed, I will present to you an overview of the EU regulation on batteries as it was adopted so in 2023 already. So it's a 2 years old regulation. First, why it was developed. This is to respond to the huge increase expected of batteries in Europe, in particular of electric vehicles batteries. And the impact of this increase in production and use of batteries on resources, including critical raw materials, for example, and on the environment. So here you have a few estimates on the expected increase in raw material mining for some materials, on raw materials refining, on the need for active materials for the production itself and recycling. So on all these, the EU needed to organize the market to allow for this increase in production and to organize the market so that the batteries produced are sustainable. So this regulatory framework adopted in 2023, its objectives is to leverage the EU internal market to foster the production of sustainable, high-quality batteries, but also at the end of life to ensure an appropriate collection and recycling of waste batteries, to ensure the better functioning of markets for secondary raw materials, so precisely the result of this recycling and enabling the use of these secondary raw materials in batteries, and to reduce the environmental and social impact throughout the life cycle of batteries. And finally, mainly as relates to the critical raw materials, to reduce the EU dependence on the imports of material of strategic importance. So the new framework covers the whole life cycle of batteries. So here you have the life cycle in black of new batteries, and in green of the possible reuse or repurposing or recycling of batteries material. And in the different boxes, you have the parts of the regulation, so affecting, attached to each part of the life cycle. So there are provisions on the responsible sourcing, so linked to the material extraction and processing, and to the manufacturing through restriction on the use of certain substances, dangerous substances or substances of concern, on provisions on carbon footprint, on recycled content, on the removability and replaceability of batteries. And then also in the primary use of batteries, in particular for electric vehicles, you have provisions on safety and provisions on performance and durability in this regulation. Then at the end of life, you have provisions on the collection of waste batteries, on the recycling with targets on recycling of specific materials. And then throughout the life cycle, you have also provisions on the classification, which batteries are concerned by which provisions, on extended producer responsibility, and on information and labeling. And this includes the digital passport that several interventions were referring to. So what does it include? You have a chapter in this regulation on sustainability and safety requirements, so which includes the restriction of substances. So this is the continuation of other regulation on specific substances. So that's typically mercury, lead, cadmium, and cobalt for the recycling. Provisions on the carbon footprint. And so the regulation includes already the main principle of carbon footprint. And then this is continued later on through Delegated Act, giving more details on how to calculate and verify the carbon footprint. Provisions on the recycled content with already targets on the use of specific secondary raw materials in new batteries. And this is staged in time, so it's not applicable immediately, but already there are provisions that apply in 5 years or 10 years' time. Provisions on the performance and durability, in particular of EV batteries, on the removability and replaceability, and this is more for portable batteries or batteries of light mobility vehicles, and provisions on safety. Then you have another chapter dealing more with the end of life on waste batteries, with obligations of producers to collect and enable the recycling of these batteries. So that's what we call producer responsibility obligation, which in general is done through producer responsibility organizations. So producers mutualize this duty to make it more efficient. Then obligations of collection, recycling targets, which I mentioned already, recovery targets of material, and specific provisions when it relates to the shipment of waste batteries. So to ensure that waste batteries is dealt with correctly, whether in the EU or outside of the EU, if they are shipped outside. Then you have other specific chapters in the regulation dealing with the labeling, the marking of batteries, as there is a there are special obligations of marking in batteries. And the information provided via QR code, so leading to the batteries passport, which is a digital version of this information required for each battery. There is a specific chapter also on due diligence, so to evaluate the risk related to environment or social impacts throughout the life cycle of the batteries, with an obligation to put in place a due diligence policy to have a management plan of this risk and disclosure of information on how this risk was evaluated and is being addressed by producers. So the first step in this regulation was a classification of batteries and an update of the old classification. So there was already a classification of batteries, in particular in the old waste batteries legislation, but this has been updated in particular to add a specific classification for electric vehicle batteries, which is now distinguished from industrial batteries, and to have also specific subcategories, in particular for the stationary energy storage system, which was not identified as such in the previous regulations. And so this classification is important, is useful when going through the regulation, because not all provisions apply to all batteries. So you have to know when looking at the obligations to which batteries exactly this applies. Then the core of the regulation are the requirements for the placing of batteries on the EU market. So this is legislation under the internal market legislation, meaning that the requirement apply to all products put on the EU market, whether they are produced within the EU or imported to the EU. So it's exactly the same requirements, and it is important for the EU that these minimum requirements are applied indeed by all batteries. And that concerns the design of the battery, but also the production, requirement on carbon footprint, on recycled content affect the production of the battery. So even if this is not necessarily verifiable on the final battery, it has to be verifiable throughout the life cycle of the battery. And then I mentioned the provisions on the information of the batteries and due diligence by the economic operator. On the end of life, so I introduced already the obligations of producer in terms of extended producer responsibility. To be noted that there is an obligation of registration of producers in the member state, precisely in order to organize this extended producer responsibility. And the purpose of this extended producer responsibility is to organize the collection and to finance this collection. So typically there are additional fees added to the cost of batteries so as to finance the end of life of batteries. That includes, I mentioned the collection rate and the targets in terms of recycling. So there are targets both on the recycling efficiency and on the material recovery. So with specific targets for cobalt, copper, lead, lithium, and nickel. And then there are provisions more to facilitate a second life for the same batteries. So putting conditions under which batteries may be reused if they can still be used in good condition. How they can be remanufactured, so put back to their initial conditions of work. And these, of course, are preferable treatment in comparison with recycling, which is a destruction of the batteries in order to recover its materials. A word on the removability and replaceability obligations. So this applies to portable batteries, so to all the small batteries that we have in many different products, and to the batteries linked with light mobility. So all these batteries need to be replaceable, removable, and so that as conditions on the design of the battery and the design of the products in which the battery are integrated. There are a few exceptions, so where this replaceability by the end user is dangerous, there are the possibility to restrict this replaceability to professionals, but these are limited exemptions, which could increase in time. And this is in particular the case for light means of transport, which of course should be recharged by the end user, but if there is an intervention within the battery, this is limited to professionals. Specific highlight also on the carbon footprint. So the requirement on carbon footprint is applicable to electric vehicle batteries, to industrial batteries above 2 kilowatt-hours, and batteries for light means of transport. The three have different deadlines for applying the carbon footprint. So the deadline for electric vehicle is the first one arriving, but other type of batteries have also the obligation of carbon footprint, but with a longer time of application. So it covers the whole life cycle. It's based on each manufacturing plant, and it includes the emissions in terms of carbon equivalent for the use of energy or for other operations in the production of batteries. The methodology, as I said, is to be detailed in the delegated act, even if the main principles are already in the regulation, and we have this principle of stage approach. A word on the passport. So the passport has a digital version of the product information. You have in the regulation itself a list of information that should be included in this passport, including the carbon footprint, for example. The objective is to ensure the interoperability of initiatives, to give access to operators which need to have, which have a legitimate interest to have information on the batteries, for example, to reuse them or to intervene on them. But this should also, in time, enable the consumer to compare different batteries and see what is the best for its own purpose. And this becomes so mandatory as from February 2027 with the use of the QR code. And a last slide on due diligence with this system of control transparency over the supply chain. This should be supported by a specific management plan by the producer, but of course this involves also the supplier to this producer. The scope here is indicated with the size of the battery manufacturers, but you should know that there is currently a proposal to increase this size. So basically to exclude the medium size battery producers. And finally, this due diligence focus on specific materials so as to identify the main risk associated with batteries production. So thank you for your attention and looking forward to the debate later on.
네. EU의 그 배터리 정책에 관한 아주 세세한
Thank you so much for the presentation on the EU's battery regulation. Mr. Ang Lee, thank you once again.